cells. First advantage is there's no human life destroyed in the process. They don't come from a human embryo that must be destroyed. There's no destruction of human life. Nobody objects on any kind of moral ground, any church, not just the Catholic, no one objects to use and studies of adult stem cells. The second advantage of adult stem cells is they don't form tumors. The third advantage is they are genetically stable. That is, they do survive when transplanted into animals and into adults. The fourth advantage is currently there are 1,500 clinical studies going on in the United States for the medical usefulness of adult stem cells, studies that are already going on. No studies have been approved for embryonic stem cells because of the dangers that they present. So that embryonic stem cell research is way behind adult stem cell research. There's been no scientific advances in the area of embryonic, only in adult stem cells. So tests are going on now for things such as multiple sclerosis, Lou Gehrig's disease, sickle cell anemia, juvenile diabetes, any kinds of diseases. They've already been successful in treating these diseases, heart disease, leukemia, the cornea, juvenile diabetes. Adult stem cells have already saved lives. They're already being used now. A fifth advantage to adult stem cells is that the tissues are easily immune matched to patients. So if they're taken from a person's own body to become some other kind of tissue, of course they're not rejected by a person's body. But if they're not taken from that person's body, if those stem cells are coming from someone else, there are registries that exist to find a genetic match. For example, my oldest best friend from high school, his wife just turned 40 last month. She has stage 4 non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. So if she survives the chemo, the only way she'll live beyond that is a bone marrow transplant. Her sister is not a match for her, so they have a bone marrow registry of donors throughout the world, 13 million of them. And for Desiree, there are 7 who are potential matches for her. If she survives, if all this works out, it's going to be because of adult stem cells. That's what's going to save her life. And the research that's been done in that area, embryonic stem cells, they don't exist to save her life. A final advantage to adult stem cells is that some of the recent studies, some done in November of 2007, 3 independent studies, show that adult skin cells have been reprogrammed to become just about any kind of stem cell whatsoever. This has been very helpful, especially for treating sickle cell anemia in the months since then. A lot of advantages to adult stem cells. On March 9th of this year, a couple of federal laws were overturned. One law now allows for federal funding of embryonic stem cell research, so that the idea is that embryos can be created in order to be destroyed, human beings can be created in order to be destroyed, to produce more lines of embryonic stem cells. The other law now directs money away from adult stem cell research, which has seen all of the progress and all of the advantages. That's what's been saving lives. Money is now directed away from that towards embryonic stem cell research. And a lot of the change, the talk was that this was done in order to remove ideology from science. However, even removing ideology from science is itself an ideology, right? To say it lets science be unrestrained. That's an ideology as well. That's an idea. That's one theory. That's one approach or perspective to how we should see science. And yet, in the church, we never want to have science without morals, without some kind of values and principles. Gandhi had his list of the 7 deadly sins, and if you've seen that before, but one of his 7 deadly sins was science without humanity. So he knew that 60 years ago. Science without humanity is dangerous. We would say that science without morals, science without ideology, all the same thing. The idea that the church has is that science is at the service of human beings. Human beings are never at the service of science. Science exists for us, for our benefit. We don't exist in order to further science. Science exists for the betterment of our lives, every aspect of our lives. It's at our service. And so in looking at the church teaching, maybe some fundamental principles for how we understand this issue. The first is to see that the church is a complete supporter of science. Science is an investigation, and research is something that's good. The church is not opposed to science in general or biomedical research in particular. Pope Benedict XVI said last year, The Catholic Church appreciates and encourages the progress of the biomedical sciences, which open up unprecedented therapeutic prospects. So the Pope is aware of these issues, and the Church is in favor of this kind of research. However, the Church also teaches that a human embryo is a human being. Catechism of the Church says, since it must be treated from conception as a person, the embryo must be defended in its integrity, cared for, and healed as far as possible, like any other human being. Human beings beget human beings. A human embryo is only going to be a human being, right? You and I were there one day. When you and I were 4 or 5 days old, we were just at that stage as well. And look at where we are now, all the potential that's been released as we have come to maturity. Another principle the Church is teaching is that since the human embryo is human life, all human life must be protected and respected. So the U.S. bishops wrote a document a year ago on the issue of embryonic stem cell research, saying that life is our first and most basic gift from God. It is the right upon which all other rights are based. For example, the rights of life, liberty, the pursuit of happiness, the right to freedom of speech, the right to freedom of religion, rights that are recognized the world over. Nobody has that right if you don't have first the right to life. If you're not alive, then you don't have those rights. So the basic and fundamental right of all human beings is the right to exist, the right to be, the right to live. And then finally, the Church says that any direct attack on innocent human life is always wrong. And that's where the Church would put embryonic stem cell research. In opposition to scientists and religions who are opposed to embryonic stem cell research, not all scientists are in favor of doing that, some say that it's been argued that any harm done in destroying embryos is outweighed by the potential benefits. So many good things can come for us to save lives in the future from embryonic stem cell research. First, we've seen that actually the advances are in adult stem cell research, but also to see that, as John Paul II said, the false assumption that a good end can justify direct killing has been the source of much evil in our world. The killing of innocent human creatures, even if carried out to help others, constitutes an absolutely unacceptable act. The fact is, some of the qualities that make a person that are not found in a human embryo, they may not be found in the very young, in the very old, in the very disabled. And we don't experiment with human beings.